that we're edging awfully close to 1.5 right now. I think are we at 1.2 or something like that? And I'm wondering about coming up with these sort of hard numbers and what that does for messaging, because I could imagine meeting 1.5, and I could imagine people sort of throwing their hands in the air and say, well, that one's gone, and giving up on the battle. Talk to me a little bit about the importance to you of setting these standards and the danger of missing them.
I mean, we talked earlier about inequalities and a bit about sort of climate justice, and understanding that that the effects are going to be felt more by more vulnerable people, more vulnerable community, coastal communities, small islands where sea level basically means if they exist or none or do not exist anymore. All of that. Loss and damage. Remember that loss and damage refers to the irreversible effects of climate change. When we last year celebrated that we had a decision on creating this fund of loss and damage, we also said very clearly, this is actually, we shouldn't be celebrating this, because this means that we have failed. We have failed to address the causes of climate change, which are our burning of fossil fuels. And we have failed to reduce those emissions quick enough so that we can limit the warming, and thus those consequences do not exist. So it is going to be more and more expensive the further the warming goes. And it's going to be basically, no one is going to be being able to pay for this. Let me give an example in the case of Chile. I mentioned that we have a law that addresses both mitigation and adaptation. I would say that for the first time this year, the economic impact of climate change was really felt in our economy. We had in February enormous forest fires that covered a bit less than a third of the country, enormous forest fire. And we had the whole country addressing them. We got lots of international help as well. And then this was in February. In June, we had enormous flooding. Much of the flooding was in the same regions that had been affected by the forest fires before. And those floods finished. And 2 months later, we had again floods in the same region. So we have regions in our country that lived forest fires and 2 enormous floods in the same year. It is just absolutely impossible to adapt to that and to reconstruct that. And so I would say, so this is a country where, I mean, we have earthquake, we have tsunamis, we have volcanic eruptions. So we are quite used to having important geological hazards and that we need to reconstruct afterwards. But this level of hazards related to climate change, I don't think we had before. And it really felt like, well, climate change is here, it's now, it's occurring.